So it is 4:01.
Okay, fantastic. So let's call this meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Environmental Sustainability Committee, 4:01 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for making an extra special effort to be here in person today. I do acknowledge with respect that we are in Robinson Huron Treaty Territory and that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as Bowatang. And Bowatang is home to Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. Looking for a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of our last meeting, which took place on January 14th, 2026. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Nairi was there. Emily, I just want to make sure, because I don't.
You were not, so we'll need someone else to vote them.
Yeah. Trishala, thank you, and Mark. Any additions, deletions, changes? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of the minutes of that meeting? That's carried. Anyone today with a declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to the adoption of our agenda today. Could I get a mover and a seconder for the adoption of today's agenda? Thank you, Tori. Thank you, Eric. Any changes, additions to our agenda? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of today's agenda? That is carried. All right. Mr. Mayor and Mr. Mayor, we thank you very much. You are next in our agenda. We really do appreciate, I know how busy you both are, and we really do appreciate you making time for us to come to our meeting today and so we can share some information with you. For the public who may be watching, Mayor Shoemaker is here. He's just not in view of the camera, but you can see the top of his screen. In the forefront of the photo or of the video, I guess. So I just wanted to take a minute to say how we're going to go through this because we are careful of time. So we do have some preliminary information as a background to bring everybody to the same place. We will have then an opportunity for comments from the members of the committee, which I will offer you the opportunity to share your comments. You'll have a couple of minutes to do that in light of the time, and we want to keep the meeting moving along, and we do want to get to some good discussion. Following that, there will be an opportunity for you, anyone on the committee or yourselves to ask questions, whatever questions may come up or questions that come to mind for you as we go through and discuss what's on our agenda today. So that's clear? Everybody understands the process? All right, fantastic. So here we are. We've done some great work on the environment in the last 5 years. You can go back just one there. I just want to point out more so for the purposes of anybody who may be watching from the community here. We do have a really broad based group of folks here from a wide variety of backgrounds and professional and personal interests. Welcome, Stevie, to you for your very first meeting today. That's who we all are in background around this table. So while we've done some really great work in the last 5 years since this committee was formed, and the city did approve a greenhouse gas emission reduction plan back in 2020, we know because there's been reports from our environmental coordinator that we are not going in the direction that the plan intended for us to go. So what do we do about that? What do we do about that as a committee, as you as leadership and staff at the city? And how do we get ourselves going into the right direction? This climate plan or the greenhouse gas reduction plan, I'm sorry, that was formed in 2020 is now at the end of its 5-year lifespan. So it certainly does need to be refreshed. It does have the original plan had net zero targets by 2050 and interim targets of 5% community and 10% corporate emission reductions. We have not achieved that. The original plan, you can see here, had 7 different pillars and sections. So as a group of people here, we're looking to see that plan be refreshed. And we're looking for spending to be aligned with the targets of that plan so that we can get where we want to go. The Canada as a country is still committed to net zero by 2050. We have had a little bump in the road in the last year or so, but certainly as a country, we are going in that direction, and we want to see, and I'm sure you want to see, the community of Sault Ste. Marie be part of the success there. So we want to align that spending, and we want to highlight the actions. What do we need to do to actually get there? And we're looking for, as a result of this meeting, for you to take back and hopefully make some commitments to some of the ideas that we have here. I would ask Mayor Shoemaker and CAO Bear, what would you like to accomplish in the time that you've made available to us to spend here today?
I think an understanding really of any suggested avenues we aren't pursuing that would help us get to those targets. I know Emily's brought, I can't remember the number of actions that were in there, several hundred, right? Several $100,000, 42 projects funded that tried to move us in that direction. I know the home energy retrofit's probably one of the big ones that is outstanding, that'll help us move in that direction. But if there are others that aren't currently being worked on, that should be worked on, that need to be, added into the next 5-year plan.
Okay. Tom?
Yeah, I think similar, right? It's a forum for us to hear from this group in terms of what you think the best opportunities are, the low hanging fruit for the community to help us achieve our goals.
Did you want to add anything, Travis?
No, okay.
Okay.
I work with Emily every day. Our offices are literally side by side. Keep up the good work,
Our neighbors.
Right. Okay. So we'll continue on then. So certainly we're not going to read through all of this. This was here for all of us to have a background. I'm sure we've all read it, but during the last 5 years, we've built some governance and capacity in terms of our Green Initiatives Fund and our committee and our coordinator. And there's a list of actions that we took over the last number of years. And then in 2023 and 2023, additional actions were taken. We added a climate impact statement, or I shouldn't say we didn't add, but council chose to add a climate impact statement to their report template. We had the approval of the first sustainability report. There were various different energy retrofits and other incentive workshops and programs that were put into place that never existed in the community before. We have to be proud of ourselves for, as a community for doing something that was never done in the past, right? So a lot of good things have happened, and following 2023, things got ramped up. And Emily's going to take us through the next 3 groups of things here that have happened and have made some impact in the community in terms of greenhouse gas emission reductions.
Yes, so to build on what Donna was saying, the needle is moving. We've got some good momentum, in particular as it pertains to EVs and charging. We passed our community charging infrastructure plan. As of today, we now have 4 electric vehicles within the city fleet. We have 5 electric vehicle chargers, 3 electric ice resurfacers or Zambonis, and we also completed our battery electric bus study that was reviewed last year. Major projects and accomplishments. We now have energy efficiencies measures to be implemented, noted as a KPI in the city's facility asset management plan, which actually ties into our deep energy retrofit audit, which seek to bring the emissions of our top 6 emitting facilities to net zero by 2050. We have our ecological corridor project that we worked on in partnership with Garden River First Nation and the Algoma Highlands Conservancy. That was completed last year, and now we're looking for ways to finance that and move towards implementation. We'll be putting out an RFP for a climate adaptation plan this year, so to move beyond just the mitigation side of things and start getting more into that resiliency side of work. And we also are working on our very first public EV charger project, which will see 4 EV chargers at the John Road Station. Lots of engagement with the community, over 700 students with the Yellowfish Road program, partnerships with community groups for the City Nature Challenge, which is a global BioBlitz, as well as our second sustainability report. Building off of this, again, we've got some major on the energy and building side, our transit solar project, which is our first renewable project, which is underway. Many energy efficiency retrofits and the audit project that I spoke to earlier. Over the years, we've amassed approximately $2 million in climate and energy funding. Things such as the John Rhodes roof replacement, HVAC heat recovery projects, our community efficiency financing program, that homegrown retrofit project, our building to net zero project, which seeks to develop a green development standard for Sault Ste. Marie, and even that hybrid heat pump project with Enbridge, which was completed a few years ago. As well, the economic development team continues to work on renewable energy project attractions such as green hydrogen, mineral reprocessing, and green cement. And recently this year, the resolution to bring forward the Green Innovation Roadmap. To highlight the Green Initiatives Fund, which was one of those first governance pieces launched in 2021. Over the 5 years of its existence, over $300,000 has been invested in the community from this committee towards projects from urban forest habitat restoration, hundreds of trees, food security and urban agriculture, hydroponic projects, garden beds, energy efficiency, so retrofits and studies, LED retrofits within the community for local nonprofits, electric lawn maintenance equipment here at the city, renewable reusable bag distribution for waste reduction in the downtown. 2 repair cafes were hosted by Clean North. We've done stormwater pollution awareness murals. Thermal cameras were added to the public libraries lending program, and we're also working on a floating wetland project this year and have given funding for 2 shoreline cleanups, all from the Green Initiatives Fund, of which this committee oversees.
Our committee has sent correspondence in the last few years to the mayor and to council and the CAO, just talking about our concerns about the fact that our emissions are not trending downward. We're not on track with our 2030 targets that were in the 2020 plan. We've had community emissions increase. We've had corporate emissions increase. Both are expected to rise from the original, which was the baseline year was 2017, by 14% by the year 2037, which is 20 years into the plan. I believe we have a new sustainability report coming out at some point in the next few months that will, give us further information. However, things like fossil fuels, gasoline, diesel, natural gas, the continued use of these are certainly key drivers in us not attaining our goals. So we created in our letters and in our communications and correspondence, we suggested numerous short-term and long-term priorities to help us get to where as our input to helping achieve the goal. So as of now, as I mentioned earlier, 5 years have passed. The greenhouse gas emission plan has expired, if you will, and we think it's time to renew that so that we can get on the right track to achieve the targets that were originally intended, and perhaps even do better than that. It's important that we align spending in the, certainly some spending is helping with that as it relates to the Green Initiatives Fund, but other spending would need to be aligned to help us reduce emissions targets as a community and as a leadership model for corporate, as a corporation, and then as part of what should be required as a leadership by the community in encouraging the community itself to undertake further actions and activities and investments to help reduce overall community emissions. We suggested conducting a formal annual sustainability audit and requiring in every city council report a climate impact review where it's applicable, not optional, not maybe, but actually requiring it so that the leadership can understand the implications of ideas that are being proposed. We have started some work on prioritizing green development standards. We think it's extremely important to create for the corporation an environmental social governance or ESG policy to ensure cross-department accountability, that everybody is rowing in the same boat, in the same direction, and that there's consistent public disclosure that we're telling the community what's been accomplished, and to develop a sustainable road strategy. Okay, there's a note at the bottom here. You know, I didn't mention earlier, but it's important, along with the green roadmap, which we were all very excited to see in terms of that motion that was approved back in about a month or so ago by council. Canada's climate competitiveness strategy has all kinds of initiatives and ways that we can align to help achieve our own net zero goal, as well as, you know, doing our part within the country. On the next slide, you'll see some additional, we in preparation for this meeting, we asked the members of the committee to add any additional comments, and you'll see here some further comments. They're grouped into governance and accountability, how we handle green space and how we look at green space, that green space is climate infrastructure. And then the health of our environment and Indigenous partnerships, and how we, you know, how we interact, I guess, and what we value and what we invest in. I want to give an opportunity now for anyone from the committee to add a comment and you only have a couple of minutes because we got to keep things moving along here, but add a comment or elaborate on something that you already said there as part of your contribution to the meeting. Does anybody have anything they'd like to contribute?
And just to be clear, these are just the comments. Questions will come
Right,
later.
we'll get to questions, but this is just comments here now. Anyone with a comment? No? Nothing, no?
Just the time for.
This is the time for a comment. I know you have, I'm pretty sure you have a comment, Andre. Do you want to take a minute and give your comment? Not question, we're gonna get to question.
the comment.
Your comment. Do you want to elaborate on anything you might have already?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so, as you know, I represent, active transportation. And, I just want to maybe, the way I look at it, so our transportation sector is 40% of the emissions, so it's a big part of it. And it's going up faster than the other sectors. It's up by 6%.
To be clear, that's without industry.
Without industry count, right, correct. And thanks. Now, since other cities have been successful in reducing their transportation sector emission by incentivizing public transit and active transportation. So we've seen cities do that all around the world, and I think it's a good example how it's done. And yes, I think to remember is transportation choices people decide how to move, depending on how much it's going to cost and how convenient it is. So the investments, the way you build the city makes people choose a particular type of transportation. You make it easy to drive, that's what people will do. We've made a lot of progress in active transportation, I believe, in the last 15 years, starting with the Hub Trail. And we've grown a lot since then. We call the Hub Trail a gold standard trail because it is segregated, it is separate from traffic, and it's safe for 8-year-olds and 80-year-olds. So that's the kind of the gold standard. And with the city of Sault Ste. Marie, the Hub Trail design being circular, connective is a real big achievement for us. And the expansion into Third Line and into Jamestown and Bay Street, etc., is awesome, and we're really happy about that. And it's been strong. We also had a huge expansion in mountain bike trail system, and we probably have one of the top trail system in the country. And also as a result of that, we had a huge expansion in participation for children. Our kids program at Hiawatha, we get two programs, over 100 kids, both in the spring and the fall. And our club has grown from 50 members in the eighties. Now we have over 500 members in our club. So it shows that when you build it, they do come, and cycling is very alive and well in this community. So some of the concerns, road expansion to accommodate congestion basically makes it easier to drive, and it's expensive. And also, if we expand the urban service line, we also create more traffic, which is a self-inflicted sort of cost, and we can't even afford to take control. So I think to say that we can't afford to invest in active transportation, they say that in a transportation, $1 to move somebody by active transportation or by public transit costs $1 to move the same person with a car. It costs $10 to the community. So that's the kind of, it's very expensive when you're car-centric development. We also, we have a system, and we have an opportunity to expand on the system to connect the whole city. And I understand with the budget, we weren't able to, well, it was cut out for some reason. And I just thought it should have been the last thing you cut out. Cut out the road expansion programs first and put your money into that, so that we want to make it easier to do the alternative. And that's when people start to change. And I think that's why the design of the city dictates the behavior of the people in the city. So when you invest in making it easier to drive, you get more driving.
Andre, can I ask you to wrap
Winter
up?
maintenance. I'm almost done.
Thank you.
Okay. I think winter maintenance is like Fort Creek, for example. We have a beautiful trail, but in the wintertime, I come through that way all the time. And in the wintertime, that one section is not maintained. Everything else is. So it's kind of like frustrating because I can't go that way now. So, and there's a lot of people who use that area, and I've advocated to get that done, and it might get done. You can't afford it. Okay. So why do you invest in active transportation? Because it's cheaper. It reduces emission, it improves public health and improves happiness. The cities that have high ratings in cycling friendliness are also have high rating in happiness friendliness. So I think there's a connection there. And also the other thing to realize is that it's equity, because not everybody can afford to drive. A lot of people don't drive, and driving is becoming more and more expensive. So it's not fair for people who can't afford a car that they are second-class citizens because they're riding bicycles or they're walking or they're taking public transit. So we need to make sure that the quality of active transportation and public transit remains high. Anyway, so that pretty well summarized.
Thank you.
I have to say thank you.
Andre, we really appreciate your passion. I know. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Anyone else with a comment?
I just have a quick comment. So I think marketing ourselves as a green city with all of the amazing things that we do aligns really well with the tourism efforts, and like that. That's why people come to Sault Ste. Marie, is because we're surrounded by the outdoors. And even just recently talking with a few people that were deciding whether they were going to live out west in Squamish versus here in Sault Ste. Marie, they chose the Sioux, not only for living expenses, but the accessibility to the outdoors, the fact that we are not a large city. So I think there's a lot of opportunities in promoting us as a green city.
Thanks, Nairi. Other comments?
Oh, sorry. And I was gonna say to that point too, when we talk about economic development and sustainability and as we move forward, I think that's another very good opportunity here as we, diversify how we're, creating jobs and building the community. There's a lot of area there that we can see that expansion in that economic development and the sustainability type businesses and things like that. So that it's moving on just besides one business. There's a multitude for smaller businesses and in certain fields that can take off in the city.
Other comments from anyone?
No, absolutely.
Of course you can.
Well, you mentioned it, but I think it's important that you were here, your worship. to hear this from, you know, a group that's putting this as a top priority. It's kind of their mandate, right? And that Tom's here, staff level, so I just think it's really important that you are here, that I appreciate you being here, as I'm sure everybody else does. To Andre's point, and maybe Tom or Matt can elaborate, or Schumacher can elaborate on this a bit. When we're in a situation that we're in as a community, especially facing what we're facing now, we're trying to balance, you know, developing the economy and growing our city. And sometimes the best intentions of a group like ours sort of work at cross purposes from what we're doing, right? In the terms that we want people to come to the community, we want the community to grow. We try urban intensification as best we can, but inevitably we have to connect the city with some roads, right? But to his point, is there, like, if we can do our best to prioritize, especially when we're developing new roads or new neighborhoods, that we try to prioritize, you know, at least an active transportation piece in some form or fashion to those developments. Like the money, it's gonna cost more money, but you know, if we have the opportunity to grow, I think we have to kind of have that in the back of our heads as we, you know, develop new neighborhoods, or even if we expand some of the areas where, you know, more industrial or economic development takes place, to have the opportunity to access those sites, not just by driving there to work, but getting there, you know, through public transit, which probably will happen, but through active transportation as well.
Thanks, Corey.
Yeah.
I would just add one small thing to that, which is I'd like it to, I'm sure everyone would concur with this, but I will say it from my perspective, that it comes to the front of our head, not the back of our head, right? Like it's something that's in the forefront. It's something that drives us and we think about. It's not something that happens if we maybe can or last or whatever. You know, we're hoping that that's the type of I guess thought process and psyche that we can move towards. Does anyone else have a comment? Trishala, I know you do.
So, I would just like to first of all congratulate the city for doing a lot of work towards environment and sustainability. That's really nice. Coming new to Canada and also coming new to Sault Ste. Marie, being a part of the committee, this makes me feel very fortunate that the city is really focused on what exactly needs to happen for the next coming years. Also, this is just a comment, and considering I'm somebody who is new to over this place, I would really be happy to see if the city prioritizes more of people who are also more focused towards applied sciences and natural sciences, because I see a lot of opportunities here in terms of environment and sustainability, but I do not see a lot of jobs. So the option which is open then is that either the people who come here for studies, be it in Algoma or in Sault College, I see wonderful courses in Sault College in the applied and the natural sciences. But to have that opportunity open to those students, even to the international students, or even to of the students who are of the city or the country, we have a lot of opportunities here, I'm sure, which can open up doors for those professionals who come and work here as well. So this could be one of the suggestions which I would like to bring we talk to the city. Thank you.
Thanks, Trishelle. Anyone else with a question? I'm sorry, a comment. We are still on comment.
I'll try to be quick.
Thank you, Eric.
I think we have to also think about investing in environmental sustainability as a smart way of spending money too, because I mean, others have already brought up that, for example, when you spend, there's an upfront cost in investing in active transport, but it really does, I mean, all the research shows, it really does reduce dramatically your expenses related to road maintenance, for example. And a lot of the other projects that we've like funded through the ESC, like tree planting and a lot of this sort of, and like investment in wetlands and this kind of thing really does reduce costs related to flood damage and that kind of thing too. And I mean, you know, the research varies, but most of the estimates come to like a 6-to-1 return on this kind of stuff, especially in the sort of changing climate that we're experiencing. So I think we have to think about it that way too.
Thanks, Eric. Anyone else with a comment? All right, I'm seeing none. So, back to you. Mayor Shoemaker and CAO Bear. So, thoughts? Your comments before we move on to questions.
Well, a quick thought as Shawna was speaking, I was looking at the Center for Freshwater Research over in Mark's shoulder there on the Sioux Michigan side of the border. Totally agree, you know, the work, and we tried to land the Center Freshwater Research here in Sault Ste. Marie, Canada Water Agency. We didn't get that, but I think it remains a priority for us and things we're looking at doing. Because I agree it's a natural strength for this region.
Thank you for going ahead and thinking about it. Even when I finished with my comment, even I was thinking if city prioritizes with the research and development, it would be something so much better because there are so many good researchers all over in the country and even from international places who are doing so much of work towards net zero and ESG and sustainability in general, and a lot of other green development as well. And it would be a big thing if that comes up and research becomes something which Susan prioritizes for other needs. Thank you.
From my perspective, I think Corey's been a good champion of these initiatives at council. I can think of 3 or 4 motions he's brought in the last 4 or 5 months on the green economy, on the biochar opportunities that exist as carbon sequestration or offset. I think is probably more accurate, and on the forest fire not prevention center, but forest fire, you know, coordination action center. So I think all that is stuff that council endorsed unanimously and wants to see movement on, given that we know that's where the ball is going in terms of economic development, in terms of you know, cost avoidance. I think as Eric spoke of, and for putting dollars into things where you're going to see not only a economic benefit from it, the social benefit from it as well. Council is, I think, fully, I don't want to speak for all of them, but I think fully on board with those proposals and any other ideas that would come forward.
Do you have any questions for us? Any of us?
You know, I think that if there are specific initiatives, I get the active transportation thing. Certainly we didn't cut that from the budget. It didn't make it into the budget as a cost addition, given our economic circumstances. But that's one where I think there's lots of will to do it in a year that we can get it done. This is the challenge with any municipal organization, right? We added snow removal this year. We weren't able to do other things, and unfortunately we did add to our snow removal budget because it's been a terrible year. So there are other things that we'll need to prioritize, and if there is literally like a prioritized list, that's helpful to know if we're going to be spending dollars, or if we have, you know, 30,000 this year, but next year we have 250,000. What are some of those big projects versus small projects that have the most impact?
But I think in response to that, I'm going to just repeat something that both Eric and Andre said, which is, you know, I believe Eric used the words, it's 6-to-1, right? So, you know, I would encourage, on behalf of all of us, I would encourage the thought behind how these investments are made to start thinking about that, because it feels like these investment discussions are very, I don't know, I'm going to say, for lack of a better way of describing it, like black or white, right? Or black and white. We're not, you know, capital investment or infrastructure development has a lengthy payback usually, some longer than others, right? And so I would ask that the investments in active transportation or other initiatives that will help reduce greenhouse gas emissions and get us to the 2030 and 2050 goal are thought about in a way that is, what's the payback for that? If we're, you know, I'm sure you all make those decisions every week, every day. It can be related to active transportation investments. It can be related to building investments and capital infrastructure investments and so on. But how do we get out of, well, we can only afford this, to, well, if we spent this, then, you know, this is the impact of that. It's going to take a while to pay back. I don't know what a while is. You know, like there's ways of accounting for it like this. So that becomes the standard of thinking about making these investments, so that as people that have to make decisions about how limited budget dollars are used, you can make a business case for it. Really, that's what you're doing, right? You're making a case for spending this in order to achieve that. And it just, the payback is just a different period of time is all. Do you have other questions for us? Okay, so now I'd like to ask if anyone from the committee has a question for Mayor Shoemaker or for Mr. Bear, or Travis has a question.
Well, no, I have a comment.
Oh.
So, you know, I think obviously we're pushing heavy on the budget and it is important, you know, obviously, just going back to Andre's comment, like the hub trail is the gold standard. But I think a lot of the work that we've been working on through tourism and what have you, we recognize that some of the practices that we're trying to achieve now have happened a while ago and have dropped off. And I think that's where some of the policies and procedures we're looking at as a corporation. Corey and I grew up on the same street together for a little while. I would say arguably one of the best active transportation networks that we ever did as a community were catwalks. You know, and that is a relatively, does everybody know what catwalks are? Yeah, okay. Like those are
Paths that connect neighborhoods.
So like
Yeah.
we grew up on Westridge or Woodhurst, you can cut over to Westridge and then right over to North Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. So I think probably like this committee also needs to consider what policies and procedures need to change. So it could also assist us in terms of achieving our targets that are relatively low cost. But you need to focus on both, but.
And I was not aware they were called catwalks. Learned something new today.
No, 80s.
Yeah.
I would say, so to your point, and then to budgets, you're seeing a lot of them not cleaned anymore. So there's a lot of them that are,
I mean, from
you know,
snow,
yeah.
they're not
or,
maintained in the winter.
Or maintain period.
Yeah, and I know in my neighborhood, there's a shift. There's a lot more younger kids in my neighborhood now, and you're seeing now that they're having to, you know, walk around greater distances of sidewalks and all these catwalks now that are not being cleaned, and they can't just get to school by going through the subdivisions in the neighborhoods. They're walking out onto, I'm just off Shannon, so you're walking up to Shannon and having to walk down there, which is a very busy street. So they can't just cut through those anymore. So you're seeing some of that, the positive that happened with that, then the negative of budget cuts, that they're not being cleaned or maintained anymore. So.
Other people with questions? Or,
Can I just follow on that?
Yeah.
As a parent too, like in that situation, the difference is that I'll probably get in the car with my kids and drive them to school. You know, so there is like a real cost there too, taking away the maintaining of those catwalks.
And being someone who's works in a school, there is a proliferation over the course of the last 4 or 5 years of people driving their children to school and picking children up. And the fact that we can put as many no idle zones, signs as we want. But when you get to some of the bigger and busier schools, there are people who line up for 45 minutes and sit there or 45 minutes to car rent, right? And sometimes it's 20 or 25 cars, so anything that we can do to kind of incentivize families not to do that, would be.
Any comment on that? Superior Heights, big problem there. Where's a big place where people walk to go to Superior Heights? Or a creek. But in the winter time, it's not plowed. So hard for kids that go to high school who could walk not too far. And then you got this big pile of snow.
Yeah, and there have just been a lot of communities who have had success in putting up some barriers, programs, one through education and one through design, and some barriers that prevent people from driving their kids to school. And it's
Yeah,
phased in,
another one.
and after a while, you
A
know,
stick rather than a carrot.
yeah, they've seen.
Emily, can you go back one slide, please? There's a lot of good, I want to make sure that we've had a lot of conversation around active transportation, and I think we've done, a good job of getting that message
Fair.
sent. There is a lot, and in the new active transportation plan, there are programs, 1 or 2 programs from my recollection that speak specifically to that. So we've been given the expert guidance on how to do these things. We're just not following it right now. We're not implementing it. Does anyone have any questions about things other than active transportation and how that relates to reducing greenhouse gas emissions? Or,
I've got a question, and I can't remember if we talked about this a long time ago. But has the city reviewed the policies and programs with relation to, here's the bronze, silver, and gold standard of like, when you go and build a little urban area, keep trees, that sort of thing? Like if there's a climate, you're reviewing the policies and seeing if there's any gaps relating to climate change or any opportunities.
Like a standard?
Yeah.
What is that standard specifically?
Well,
I'm familiar with it for new builds, like LEED.
Well, I don't know what, I don't know what that was just one example that came to my mind.
But there must be one, right?
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, like, in all of the different departments of the city, if there's certain opportunities, because we did this, so I worked for the M&R, and we did this policy by policy for all of this sustainable forest management policy, looking for opportunities of, okay, we're not doing this, we could do this, or we could do that, and we presented all these options to the M&R, and we chose like the low-hanging fruit, of course, to start with and build on. But I just don't know, like, is that part of what the climate plan, I don't know if the city's done something like that before.
To meet a standard, like a specific standard, that was not an action in the original.
Well, not a standard, that was just an example, but
But certainly the expansion of our green spaces,
Yeah.
doing an urban forest inventory, understanding where are our trees, are they healthy? And where are the places that we should plant more trees strategically, as well as understanding the carbon offset.
I think to a certain degree as well, like when we look at some of the new builds and the requirement for developers, like we've reduced the number of required parking spaces, right? So we're looking at some of those reductions. There is a requirement of tree planting with those developments. So I'd have to go back to planning and building to understand how they came to those, that criteria, but I think that's an opportunity that we could certainly look at with those groups.
Yeah.
But I think they've obviously researched it and compared it against something else. I just don't know where it lands
Yeah.
within the standard.
Well, even just broader, so we have a forest policy. This is the example that I had, the forest policy, and we're looking for different areas that we can incorporate resilience, or we can incorporate greenhouse gas reductions, and not just like in housing, but also active transport and whatever other programs the city has. And just looking at the policy in place and if there's any gaps or if there's any barriers to doing something new.
So it started with the policy.
Yeah, it started with the policy.
Other questions, Stevie? I understand you have a question. Okay.
I have a question, it kind of, of course, politics, it kind of relates, I don't know, it's all related. But I attended a meeting in the fall when you were speaking about the 2-road compound and working and walking alongside our local First Nations, which is, I think, a fantastic approach and something we should be doing. So well done. My question is, there is the traditional ecological knowledge to the TEK. There's an elders group that has, is part of the North Shore of Lake Huron. We have elders that are from Batchewana and Garden River that are part of it. They've been going for a moratorium on aerial spraying of glyphosate as it harms our trees, it plants, the animals, and it decreases biodiversity. It also makes it as more vulnerable to pollution and climate change. So I know there is about 60 municipalities in Ontario that have signed a resolution asking the provincial and federal governments to ban aerial spraying. I'm just wondering if council has ever considered a resolution or would be, if this would be something they would be willing to look into as it aligns with the city's environmental and reconciliation commitments.
Yeah, I think that there'd be strong consideration of that at council. It's first I'm hearing of it, but yeah. We don't use any area spray for our own purpose.
No, I was gonna say, I know at the AMO conference in one of the sessions last year, there was a panel there and the Minister of Environment was there and one of the municipalities brought up like glyphosate spraying, which was something, excuse me, they indicated they were researching and looking into. It hasn't come to our council, our council hasn't considered a formal resolution on it, but it could be something that council could consider. We could look at gathering information on that to inform council.
We have time for one more question, if anybody else has one.
I have a question, but I'm not sure I'm allowed to ask anymore.
I'd rather, yeah, can I?
You got 30 seconds.
Let me, Trishalla has a question, then if we have time, we'll get to your question. I just want 10 minutes before 5 to wrap up. Go ahead.
So I just had this question related to the carbon sequestration offsets and the green spaces, which are already, which is already allotted, like just building of the green space feedback and the recent 30 by 30 targeted commitments. Does the city have any plans to assess the carbon storage potential of existing green spaces? And apart from that, do you have any plans to account for the carbon sequestration offsets in the green spaces? So this was just coming out from also the way that a lot of things can be done in continuation of this carbon sequestration project, which is ongoing. So I just thought of coming across and asking about it. If something can be done, it could be again a tremendous thing because we have a lot of green spaces over here and already it has been allotted. So yeah.
Yeah, I had the same question actually. So.
Yeah, so in our climate plan, we do have a green space pillar. And part of that is to create a formal urban forest inventory. So understanding again, our total tree count, the health of the species where they are. And as part of that, we would get that data. It has not been done yet. That's something that we need to be budgeting. As part of the ecological corridor project, some preliminary carbon sequestration calculations were looked at, but they need to be drilled on in a bigger capacity. As well, we had some students from Algoma University use iTree, and they did some preliminary estimates on the carbon sequestration potential. Also our canopy coverage, which is quite large for a community of our size. So we've done some preliminary groundwork, but a formal project would need to be done to validate all of those details through a third party to get those numbers.
I'm trying to recall, but we had a report on urban tree canopy. Did we at council? I'm almost certain of that. Did we not apply for funding to get?
We applied for money
Yes.
to do that.
Right.
And we were not
We did not
successful.
get it. Okay.
And we were looking to partner with different groups. I think also there's some preliminary work with Natural Resources Canada. But it's very preliminary as it pertains to that.
Could something like that, something not like that be facilitated? I want to say in-house, but in community through the experts we have in town at 2 provincial levels of government, our First Nations partners, us, 2 post-secondary institutions. Like, is that not something that we could get a bit of a handle on?
We've done some preliminary work with Natural Resources Canada on that. When we applied for that funding, we had done outreach to Sioux College, their School of Environment, as well as a couple of other, I think the Conservation Authority was involved. They're in the process of doing their new resource management plan, so it could be. But, you know, if you don't have something specific, it's more of a side of desk project. This would be something that I've been trying to get off the ground for years, but, you know, it would be great to see if we can continue looking for monies and try to prioritize it and maybe put some skin in the ball.
So we're gonna put that on our list. You're on your list.
Sure.
Andre, like 30 seconds for a question.
I think
Stevie has a question.
Corey has to.
And, oh,
I'm gonna, can I
Okay.
make one comment?
yes.
Quick. I just think as a community, in order to get these things moving, the people who need to make them happen is staff, but that's through us, right? And in order for people like me, or in my position, whether they be like elected positions, there needs to be the impetus to want to participate in these types of efforts. And the way you get buy-in is by the community, the corporation, quite frankly, making it a priority, not only in their actions, but in their work, which doesn't really make much sense maybe to you, but I think letting people know all of the good things we're doing, and at the same time, knowing guys like Matt and me and other people, sorry, Mr. Mayor and me and others, speaking about it often, whether we communicate through social media about it, but getting the word out there, because if we can get the community to start thinking this way, and I know there are a lot of people who think this way in the community, but there are a lot of people that if I say to them, we're gonna build a bike path or we're gonna build a road, unfortunately, the preponderance of people are gonna be pissed off and say, no, build the road, right? So it's just kind of like a paradigm shift in our communication and how we think things out, but this effort is. it's a step in
Those ideas are also in the active transportation plan programs. Andre, you have 30
that. Yeah, that nobody
seconds.
knows about.
I know, but that's because we're not communicating it.
With Mr. Mayor, would you consider the
Yeah.
role model being the biggest employer in the downtown to give your employees or the city employees a transportation benefit instead of a free parking taxpayer subsidized spot to store their private property? So that would get around I know you've tried before, but it would help. So if somebody walks to work or gets a bus, or they get $1,000 a year, and if you drive, well, you park, but you have to pay for it for parking, because that is probably the most biased anti-active transportation is subsidizing the motorists at every turn. Would you support that?
I support charging for parking, 100%. Always have, always will.
Thank you, and I know you have, and let's get this, let's do it.
Okay, Stevie, 30 seconds.
I'm just building on the 30 by 30 and Covet's frustration. Talking about Point of Shame, know that there's FPL for development. That area that's proposed, how, like, my question is balancing the old growth forest, the habitat corridors, the cultural and ecological significance of that land with building, within the city's authority as a landowner and planning body is maintaining low impact public access, such as reopening the campground without water access, or like portable water being considered as an option. That space, people love that campground. That would we wouldn't be changing any of, nothing would change the area in terms of carbon or land.
You know, it depends on what comes to us through the RFP process. I think probably the most accurate response, but there's no discussion of closing the public beach or the public park. So that's all going to remain for sure as is. And then it's kind of, you know, the northwestern half of the property that's under consideration, the old campground essentially. So if someone proposes a campground, it's the best use for tax revenues, I think, will be a big part of it, but also fit with the surrounding community is another aspect of it. I don't know what the other criteria are, but you could probably.
Yeah, all that flows into the analysis staff review and evaluating the submissions that we get from the RFP. Yeah. And then as the landowner, we have a say, right, in terms of the site development. So I think there'll be strong involvement from staff and council and kind of guiding that new development.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you for your questions. So what we're looking for is your commitment. And whether you can give us that today or not, I don't know. I would love to hear that. However, we're looking for your commitment on our recommendation summary, which has 7 priorities in total around the refreshing the current plan, the creating ESC governance policy, the sustainable road strategy, et cetera. You can you know what they are. So can we expect that as leadership, you will follow through on doing that? Where do we go from here, and how do we help?
From my perspective, I think only one time in the time Emily's been with the city, not Emily specifically, but our sustainability coordinator, has a project not been approved by council, and it was the bike lockers. Other than that, everything that has come to us has been approved that I can recall, and I was trying to go through it, of course, prepping for this meeting. And it really comes down to, having the recommendations. Council is not the experts in this field. We take the recommendations, we try and put it within the existing budget, or if the budget needs to be increased, that comes to us as well. So I think from my perspective, we're committed to achieving these goals. We know that there's good things happening in the community in this regard. I'd be surprised if the community emissions don't go down this year considerably. But obviously our corporate emissions have to mirror that success. So I'm committed to say that.
So to be clear, we can expect the greenhouse gas reduction plan to be refreshed, and we can expect an ESG governance policy to be created, and we can expect the climate impact review to become mandatory on council reports.
Like, it's already part of our council reports that there's a climate impact section. And so staff then work, when they have gotten, what we've directed staff to do is, like, if they have a report that they think has a climate impact, or if we're not sure, that they reach out to Emily to have that discussion with her as it goes to council. So that process happens now in all our reports.
But it's not required. So they're not required to have a climate impact statement from the sustainability department. It is if they think, correct?
It's a section, so the section is required, climate impact and.
But if they, but not, I'm really conscious of time, Tom, but if they don't come and say to Emily, could you please review this? It doesn't get reviewed.
If they have a report that relates to climate, they have to put that in there.
There's multiple layers of approval that has to
What
go
we-
through before it gets to council.
What we
So-
haven't done is added Emily as a gate within every council report, which I'm loath to do, because to be honest with you, getting those reports done on time and reviewed by everyone is a chore already. But through Emily, what we have outlined is a process for staff where they need to have a climate impact statement in there, and they can work on Emily, work with Emily, sorry, to develop those for each one of those items. If a report truly doesn't have anything to do with climate, if there's no climate impact to it, then we don't want to have a process where everything reaches through Emily to approve it in a chain.
But is it not the experts' judgment that says whether or not there is a climate impact on a report, not us, not I don't know what knowledge the various different people have about it. I'm just saying, is it not the expert to say there is climate impact or there isn't climate impact?
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get the benefit you're hoping you're gonna get by having every report read through Emily. Number one, is to create a lot of work for her to read all those reports, and number two, the process we're trying to get in place is to make sure that those reports that are relevant, there is a dialogue with Emily, and that's the work that I'm committed to as the CEO to make sure that happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just an alternative, what about like a decision making, if there's a climate impact, then voting box here.
Right.
Because then it would make.
So a
'cause
backgrounder
sometimes-
was provided to
There
staff.
was?
Yeah.
Okay, because it seems like you might not think that there's a climate impact or a climate relationship, but there could be, and you wouldn't know unless you reached out. But if you're not, like I totally understand the logistics of doing that, but it would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
challenging, but there's like an alternative way for people to self-assess.
And then what we've tried to do for the committee's knowledge is like provide Emily with access to the council agenda. And then when we do our capital planning, that she has a list of all the capital projects, so she can have a review of those to see also from her perspective, which ones, hey, there may be an opportunity there for us to look
And
at.
make sure,
For
sorry,
finance.
on that she's hitting the ones that have the potential to move the needle, right? That's kind of where we need to be right now. So those ones are definitely being captured.
So for clarity and in conscious of time, so could we expect that you could respond, whomever, to this recommendation summary and say, this is how we intend to proceed or don't intend to proceed or whatever? Is that a fair thing to ask of you?
Mhm, yeah.
Okay, how can we help?
That's helpful in and of itself, so I think
Okay.
this is a very good, launch point for, prioritization of spending dollars and what the priority, I mean, it obviously seems like the priority should be the updated greenhouse gas emissions reductions plan. That
Right.
seems like very
And-
logical work.
Yeah,
for-
and
for
the
everyone
ESG
to
policy,
work
but
together
yes, we agree.
and do it.
I know
So
you, I
apologize.
know you do. That's why I'm conscious of time. We have a couple more things to do, which we will carry on with, but I can't say enough how much I appreciate your time. I really do. On behalf of all of us, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mayor Shoemaker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis, for being here, and we look forward to seeing some great things happen.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, and I do want to say thank you all for your time in this committee, and I do want to commit to you that it is a priority for our staff and it's a priority for me, and we want to make these things happen. So I want you to let you know that we think your work's important, what you're doing.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We can send you email.
That's right.
No, I'm
Already. Already.
Hey. All right. So moving on, we have Emily's staff update next.
So some of these things I mentioned already, in the slides that were sort of like, pulse check on where we're at. So it is pretty exciting that, it took a while. There was a resolution in 2021 for all new light duty fleet to be electric, and now we have 4. So, and 3 of them were acquired this year, so better late than never. Continuing to work on that community retrofit program project. This is the design phase of, developing a homegrown retrofit program in Sault Ste. Marie. It's been a bit of a rocky road just with, funding, but we're going to see where we can get with it. Working on the draft for that community climate adaptation plan. We did receive funding for that last year. So that'll be nice to kind of expand beyond what we've really been focused on, which is mitigation and going more into that adaptation side of things. We're in the process of doing midway through our costing study for electric vehicle chargers. Building on what somebody said, I think it was you, build and they will come, like the trails. That's what's happened for EVs. By putting in the 5 chargers, we now are starting to get EVs. So this costing study will look at what is it going to cost not only to buy the chargers, but all the electrical upgrades as well. So hoping to have that done by the end of May, and that will help inform budget requests going forward. The solar project is ongoing. This was putting it in our very first renewable project at Transit. Received $1 million last year for some retrofit and accessibility upgrades at the John Road. So work is underway on that. We're pulling in LED lighting, the roof replacement, some accessibility bleachers, a heat recovery system, as well as some LED lighting outside. Working on our energy conservation and demand management plan. Last year, we put out an RFI, request for information on how we can finance those deep energy retrofit audits. It's not going to be cheap, so we have to review those. The ecological corridor update, That's done, but we are continuing to look as partners being City, Garden River First Nation, Ontario Nature, and the Algoma Highlands Conservancy for funding for implementation. And actually tonight we'll be speaking at the Canadian Institute of Foresters Knowledge Exchange for Northeastern Ontario, myself and Garden River First Nation about the project. So maybe I'll segue for a minute. Stevie, Nairi, do you want to just make a plug for that event really quick? What you're doing, what it does, why it's important for the Canadian Institute of Foresters?
So Canadian Institute of Forestry, Northeast section is a group of foresters who try and promote education, awareness. It's a national program. And there's multiple sections within Ontario. And so one of the things that we do is a knowledge exchange once or twice a year. This year, Stevie organized the entire event. She got some amazing speakers to talk about local projects, the ecological corridors. And so that's happening tonight. There's a social at Ordeno at Sioux College at 6 o'clock, pizza social. We've got a guest speaker at Pizza Social as well on Chaga. And then the keynote speakers are between 7 and 8:30 in the multimedia room in the M-Wing, M1030 at Sioux College.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. We're looking forward to showcasing it. You want to add something?
Yeah, maybe just to say quickly, like, what's part of the National Ecological Corridor Strategy, both of the Mukoka and where I work, we have Indigenous led corridor that is going through Truth Mountain. Or just something like loan by shop previous rental house. So my colleagues gonna present some work that we have so far. And then having Garden River too, because they're almost, both in the northeastern of Ontario, trying to put some good work and how the forest management can be better and how we can all work together in a good way. So if you guys want the Zoom link, just let me know.
Thank you. So we also had, we're making progress on that green development standard. Green development standards are voluntary in the province of Ontario. So when something is voluntary, it's hard to implement. However, we're building on some good momentum. We've got a business case that's complete. All of this will go to council along with a draft standard in 2027. And last week, actually, we had Enbridge in town for a Building Beyond Code workshop, which we invited builders, local stakeholders who are in the building community, including 2 councillors, and the mayor were there as well, about advancing our building to go above and beyond the Ontario building code, new builds in particular. And we got some pretty good feedback. People said like it was the best training they've had in a long time. So this built good momentum on that green development standard. Our sustainability report will be coming out hopefully in April. And we are, as I mentioned earlier, working on our very first public EV charger project. So lots on the go. That's it for me, my update. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Anyone with questions for Emily? Okay, seeing none, thank you for that update. I believe there may be a change in the
Yeah.
meeting.
That's possible.
For April, you'll get a note about that, we'll change it to hopefully to another day that week.
I'll send out a poll.
And is anything further from anyone today? That's the last item on our agenda, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
It is. Okay, so with that said, I need a mover and a seconder to adjourn. Thank you, Nairi. Thank you, Andre. All in favor of adjourning this meeting? That is carried. Thank you very much.